It has taken a while to get here, but we finally have the Cosmic Beta from System 76. It's a beta, it is not without its problems. As I was planning this video, I've already reported a couple of bugs, but this has absolutely come a really long way. I've been following since Alpha 1, and Alpha 1 was already kind of good, but it was crashy. There are a lot of basic things that didn't work, a lot of basic things that were missing, and it's come a long way since then. Now, I'm gonna treat this video as if you've never heard of Cosmic, you've never used Cosmic, just to get everyone up to speed on what to expect from the beta. So, Cosmic spawned out of System 76's attempt basically to wrangle GNOME into an environment that was suitable for their customers. A lot of their customers wanted the power of a desktop environment, but the tiling of something like an i3, for example, this led to what is known as the Pop Shell extension. This was a really popular extension, even outside of the Pop OS environment. But with the shift into libadwaita, with GTK4, there were quite a few tensions between the projects, and ultimately, it was just not going to work out, and Cosmic spawned out of those disagreements, but still liking the general basis of what GNOME was providing. Now, Cosmic is not a fork of GNOME. It is its own separate thing. It is not tied to any GNOME changes. It is written in everyone's favorite language, Rust. Now, it's also using a library known as Smithy for doing all of the fun Wayland stuff. They also went and hired the developer of this project, so they work at System 76 now. And when we're talking about GUI applications built directly for Cosmic, for example, the Cosmic settings, these are built with the ICE toolkit, along with some additional Cosmic libraries to theme them in a certain way. With that GNOME legacy, for better or worse, it's gonna have a lot of GNOME design inspirations to it. If you don't like that, well, Cosmic may not be the environment for you, but ultimately I do think they're going in a better direction. And in the truest sense of the model, Cosmic is a hybrid floating and tiling environment. It is not tiling with floating bolted on like you'll see for most tiling window managers like i3, BSPWM, Hyperland. Pretty much pick whatever you want, where floating exists, but you're not really going to use it as your main thing. And not floating with tiling bolted on like you'll see from something like KDE, where, yes, there are some tiling-esque features, but it's clearly not the primary way you're going to interact with KDE. In Cosmic, both tiling and floating are treated as first-class citizens. What this means is if you want to do everything with tiling, you can do that. You never have to interact with floating whatsoever. If you want to do everything with floating, you can do so as well. Or you can do what I'm doing right here, and you can mix and match each individual workspace. Whatever works for you, you have the power. And in floating, you have everything you'd normally expect. We can go and drag windows around, we can resize the windows. Right now I'm doing so with the super key. If you want to do so from the top of the window as well, that is an option. Or you can do it from the side here if I don't know you really like that. I highly recommend doing so with the super key. It is considerably easier. We can do things like we can snap on the edge of our screen here. We can do this window expansion, window zone. I don't know what you would call this, but a lot of environments have this where you can sort of do this like pseudo tiling in the floating mode. This right now is not customizable, but I would very much like it to be. And if you prefer doing so with a key press, that is also an option as well. Again, whatever you prefer to do. But do take note of those key presses, because those key presses are the same ones you're going to use in the tiling mode. And if you prefer doing so with a shortcut, you can do so as well. But do take note of the shortcut you are using, because this is the other thing I mean when I say they are both first-class citizens. A lot of the shortcuts used in tiling are the same used in floating and vice versa. So if we go back to the tiling environment here, if I do what I did there, which is the window swapping key, it does that. So we can then move the windows around as I want to, and I don't need to remember some different key binding, some different weird key layer thing. It's all shared in context where it makes sense. Now, if you do prefer using your mouse, that is an option as well. I have it right now set to no delay. You can set it to be click to focus if you want to as well. I am not particularly a fan of that. The only reason I would recommend click to focus in Cosmic is right now hover to focus is still broken. I reported this a long time ago. There's still a discussion about how it should be dealt with, so just keep that in mind if you are a tiling user. This can be a little bit awkward. But besides window focus, if you want to go and do a resize the windows with the mouse, you can do that. If you want to go and move the windows with the mouse, you can do that as well. Whatever you want to do. But of course, you have your key binds as well. You can go and change the window focus. You can move the windows around. You can change the orientation of the windows. If you'd like to move windows to different workspaces, that is also an option as well. Basically, all of these standard things that you could possibly want in an environment like this. If I hold down the Super X key, this also lets us do something interesting. This is called swap mode, where it's... I don't know how to describe it. Okay, note to self. Don't actually use swap mode right now, because if you swap in the direction of another monitor, Cosmic crashes. It is a beta, keep that in mind. Anyway, moving on from that one, we also have the option to use groups. So if I press this key here, you'll notice the focus line changes from just being the individual window to being multiple windows. Now, something interesting can be done with this. We actually can treat this group as an individual window. So if I want to do something like move the window, it moves the entire group. If I go and put it on, say, another workspace, that will take both of those windows. That went to a floating workspace. Let's try that again, going from this workspace and then back to the workspace I was just on. It brings both those windows, and as you can see, they are still in the group. We can also go and shrink the group, and now we're back to the individual window. Another option to shrink the group is pressing something that changes focus. So either opening the launcher or changing window focus with your mouse or anything else like that. And it's not just moving the windows together. There's also a key press to do a window resize. This works on individual windows as well, but it also works on the group. And another thing we can do with groups is window stacks. Now, a stack isn't what a lot of environments call a stack. A lot of the time, floating and stacking are used interchangeably. Stacks, in this case, mean window tabbing. So if I go and expand the group, and then I press the key for that, now we have that window in a tab group. And we can do this with floating windows as well. Let's make this floating. If we make this one a tab, and then I drag this window, there we go. And again, like with everything else I was saying, it doesn't use weird new key bindings. Let's open up a window. We're actually going to be able to see how it's moving. So let's put this one into that group. And then let's do the window move key. That moves it in the tab listing as well. If I move it once again, now it's out of the group. But if we move it back into that, now it adds it into the group. Also, we can change our window focus, and that changes the tab we are on. We can also change our focus outside of the group with the same key. But how would you move a tab group then if the key to move a tab is the key to move a window? Well, we expand the thing we are selecting. Now you can see the tab group is selected, and we can move the entire thing together. It's a little bit weird if you don't really know how it works, but I think once you have an understanding of what's actually being done here, it all starts to click together. It's a bit different from other environments, but I think it mostly makes sense. This is not the first environment to do this, to have these shared keys, to have tab groups and things like this. But it's not a thing you commonly see, and it's definitely not a thing you commonly see in a desktop environment. Sometimes there'll be extensions that add in tiling, but tiling, floating, tabbing, all of this is directly in Cosmic, no need for extensions. But if you want to use extensions and you want to make something that makes this more powerful, you can still do so. It's just, if you want this basic functionality, It's just there out of the box. But Cosmic is more than just window management. Are you an enjoyer of desktop icons? No, neither am I. But they are certainly an option here. Right-click on the desktop, go to Desktop View Options, show the desktop folder contents. Look at that! Desktop icons in a Linux desktop environment. I know this is, again, not new, but it's really not a common thing to see. It is really rare, in fact, and especially if you're coming from a tiling environment, you almost never see desktop icons. There is a bit of customization here as well. Like if you want to see your mounted drives, you can do that. If you want to see the trash folder icon, that's an option as well. You can change the icon sizes if you would like to, and all of that good stuff. Again, I am not a fan of desktop icons, but I am a fan of it being an option there for the people that are a fan of desktop icons, if that makes sense. And of course, if you're the kind of person that cares about your applications being part of the Cosmic environment, there are some first-party Cosmic applications as well. You have things like the Cosmic Terminal, which it is a totally functional terminal. I believe it's built off of Alacrity? I'm pretty sure. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. We also have the text editor. It is a graphical text editor. Need I say more? There is the media player. Again, I'm not going to use it. I like MPV. There is a software center, which I don't have installed because I don't need a graphical software center. And you have the Cosmic files if you like different file managers. Now, I tend to stick with the applications that I use on every single environment, but for people who want, those first-party applications, they are going to be here. Now, do keep in mind that they are not delusional about what they want to create. They know that some things are basically just a waste of time. For example, a web browser. If they make a web browser, it's just going to be based on an existing browser, or it would be a massive endeavor that would be the size of the desktop environment. That's just not really worth it. Same with doing an email client, because a modern email client is effectively a web browser anyway. It has a web engine. You're rendering HTML. A plain text client, yeah, you can do that just fine, but a modern client, and Thunderbird exists, right? So you got to compete with Thunderbird. You got to compete with the GNOME version as well, which is already pretty good. So what are you doing wasting your time making an email client when you can focus on the things that differentiate you instead? And personally, I tend to agree with this direction. Now, whilst it might be inspired by GNOME design-wise, that doesn't mean it's inspired feature-wise. One of the things that led to the fracture was the introduction of libadwaita and this sort of dislike of theming applications. Distros theming, users theming, the whole idea of theming, and theming shouldn't be a thing in modern applications. That's not an issue in Cosmic. If we go to Desktop, Appearance, this is where we can do our theming. Now, this is not going to be to the same level as something like GTK CSS or whatever the mess is that Qt is. This is going to be color settings and some basic rounding and density settings. This is what the majority of people are looking for when they're looking for theming. So right now, no, you're not going to be able to remake, Windows 7, for example. If you want to do that, KDE is a much better option to go with. But if you're the kind of person that wants to match the colors between your applications, this is something you can do. But if a couple of buttons is too much work for you and you just don't want to do it, there is also a Cosmic theme store as well. And all of the basic themes are available here. Your Capuchin, Grovebox if you hate yourself, Dracula, a bunch of others. You have One Dark in there, Nord Light, pretty much anything you could possibly want to look for. The page is a bit weird with how it loads. If something is not here and you want to submit it, you can go and do so as well. Or there's not that many things to configure. You can try out something for yourself. If you want to make it so you can't read the text, you're free to do so. It is your computer. Also, some work is going into place to sync your theme between your GTK, Qt, and Cosmic applications. It's not quite there yet, mostly because Qt is a complicated mess of 7 different toolkits. And if you're the kind of person who likes this, there is the option to do a swap between light and dark mode at sunrise. Right now, there is not the option to do so with your wallpaper as well, which is slightly annoying, but it's a step in the right direction. And when those are connected, people who like that feature, there you go. The feature's there. I don't get it. I don't know why people like it, but it's a feature that people want. And for the tiling fans out there, this is where you configure the gaps around your windows. I like an 8 gap. If you want to set it to 0, that is an option as well. Now, annoyingly, you can't just write the number in here, so you do have to go and click, 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 click. So if you want to make it a big number, or you want to change from a big number to a small number, it can be very, very tedious. Also, it does an automatic save, so every time you click the button, it is going to be applied, which I also am not a fan of. I know a lot of modern applications do it. I feel like it's an anti-feature, and I really wish it went away. But if you could at least type the number in here, at least that would mostly go away as a problem. If you happen to do something really dumb, like say, I don't know, setting this color here to green, and you're like, that looks really stupid, I hate it, why did I do that? If we click reset to default, that will take you back to the default of the current theme you have selected. In my case, the base dark theme. Now, another thing we have under desktop is your panel and dock settings. Don't be confused about panel and dock in GNOME. In Cosmic, your panel and your dock are the same thing. It just means bar 1 and bar 2. In my case, I just disable the dock because I don't need a second bar, but you can put all of the same stuff that I do in the panel also in the dock, or you can make it entirely different. And in here we have the panel applets. I haven't gone and installed any custom applets, but that is a thing you can do as well, and there are some developers working on little things like weather applets and crypto applets, and I'm sure there's someone who's made like an LLM applet and things like that. For me, all of the basic ones do what I want, but maybe I'll find something somewhere down the line that I want to go and add it. Much like you have on KDE, where you can go and add in random little widgets and things like that, the option is here as well. But also note that the option is really powerful because the panel is technically a Wayland compositor. So you can do anything you can do in a Wayland compositor in it. There was an early demo of, I believe it was the developer of Smithy, playing Celeste in the panel. Now, is that a good use of the panel? Probably not, but you can do anything you want with it if you know how to write the code. Now, currently the settings do not expose anywhere near as much as KDE has, but also it just right now doesn't do anywhere near as much as KDE does. But all of the things that you expect to see here, like your accessibility, your Bluetooth, your network settings, all of the desktop settings I was talking about before, our display configuration if we have multiple monitors, our battery settings, it does inform you if you're missing any dependencies. I'm not using a laptop, so I don't really care about power profiles. You have your sound settings, your input device settings. Input device settings is where you're going to find your keyboard shortcuts. If you configure your mouse, you have those options here. I configure them in an external piece of software though, so I just leave everything as basic as default and make sure I get rid of mouse acceleration because I hate the feature. If we go to applications, here's where we have something fun. X11 Applications Compatibility. If you're a KDE user, that might sound familiar. And this might look familiar as well. This is the KDE workaround for X11 applications to have working global shortcuts. I was so happy when they added this. Now, the application that I would use it for, OBS, I don't need it for because now I have the Stream Deck, but if you want to use push-to-talk in something like a Discord, for example, this is the thing that every single environment should have. Now, under the accessibility settings, it's not going to have every single possible thing you could want, but there are some nice features here, like play stereo audio as mono. This is something you can do with Pipewire and you can do with Pulse Audio, but it's a pain in the ass and nobody remembers the command to do it. So just having a toggle there, brilliant, amazing. If you need some sort of color filtering because you have color blindness, that is an option here as well. Also, grayscale if you want to do that. Now, you're not going to see grayscale show up in the footage just because the way they're handling the actual grayscaliness. Do note with the color blindness though, they don't have intensity settings like you would see in the NVIDIA control panel on Windows or in a game like Kingdom Hearts. I have recommended the addition of an intensity option, so hopefully at some point that does get added. There's color inversion, there's a high contrast mode, there is a magnifier, and of course you have your screen reader. Now, Wayland and accessibility has come a long way. It's still not perfect. From my understanding, it's nowadays in a better state than X11, but when it breaks in inconsistent ways. X11 is just consistently bad to okay, and for a lot of people, that's still a better situation to be in. As is normal on Linux, most environments expose their settings through a file. So if we go into our config, if we search KDE, actually no, it's not KDE, it's going to be all of these K-named files at the bottom down here, way down here. So you have things like your K activity and K and blah, 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 all of this stuff. You got your KDE files strewn around everywhere. Cosmic also has a bunch of files, just a little bit better managed. All of them are present in the Cosmic folder, but all of them are also broken down by the application, by the version number, and then by the individual setting. So if you're the kind of person who goes and stores all your configs in Git, if you want to go and modify an individual setting and then commit that change, you know exactly what was changed. Now, right at this time, there is not documentation for modifying these files. However, I have spoken to System76 people, and they have said there will be documentation eventually, and there will be things exposed in the config files that are not being exposed in the settings. For example, right now, you can configure your panel and dock, but you can't configure a different panel for each monitor. That's something that is going to be possible in the config files, at least it's supposed to be. And due to that, there is technically a Cosmic Tweaks application, like you have a GNOME Tweaks application, but it feels far less essential. GNOME Tweaks is basically a required application. Cosmic Tweaks is, I don't know how to mess with the config files, so I'm going to use this instead. Now, even though I had that crash earlier, Cosmic has been a relatively good experience so far, and I think they are mostly heading in a good direction. I think there are some areas they could really annoy me if they go down. For example, removing the ability to do 0-second focus. I would like them to make this work how it works, where the window changes focus when you move the mouse over to it, but it doesn't raise the window until you click on it. KDE's done this its entire life. It's a much better system. This is how most tilers work when you have floating as well, so it just feels nicer. This right here it just feels really buggy, especially when you have pop-up windows and things like that. But if you just stick to either floating or tiling, you know, or have them on separate workspaces, those problems don't tend to exist. Now, there are some areas for improvement I think would make the experience considerably better, just for everyone, not just me. One is the option to disable animations. I know a lot of people are very motion sensitive, and having a slide animation when you go between the workspaces is not preferred for everyone, or when you like full screen a window, it does this expansion thing. I know why they have animations. Animations look nice, but it would be nice to be able to disable them, or especially disable them individually. So I want to get rid of this one, but I want to keep this one. There are some noticeable lag issues with certain elements. For example, the workspace display down here. So there is a good maybe quarter second until it updates that you're on that workspace. And I think it doesn't update until after the animation ends. And I get why it's like that. It just feels really awkward that it's delayed from the key press. One little thing, but it annoys me every time I see it, is for the additional scale options, which I think is a bad name anyway. That's basically, you have your regular scale, so we can set it to 125, and then I can add 5, 10, 15, so on and so forth on top of that. For some reason, it uses a different font size I don't know why. It feels like a bug. I remember reporting it a long time ago. I don't think there was any progress there. It just feels wrong to see a random different font size. Whilst a lot of settings are going to be exposed in the config file, I do hope to see more exposed within the actual graphical settings as well. I don't think you should need to go into the files to have a different panel for each monitor, for example. Things like that, I think, belong in the graphical settings. I think it should be the more advanced configuration, doing weird, unexpected things that belong in the config file. Now, I don't know if this is going to be part of the config file, but something I would really like to see is I don't like that the style option is an individual selection. It's round, slightly round, square. I would like something in between these two options, and that's just not a thing I can do. Same with the interface density. Maybe I want something that is somewhere between compact and comfortable, but that's just not a thing I could do. I would like this to just be a continuum. You can even have like hard limits of compact and spacious and just let me set it anywhere along that line. And as I noted earlier, I've already run into a couple of bugs, but of course it is a beta. Let me just show you one of those. It is kind of an amusing one. If we go to the shortcuts and I try to set a shortcut just on anything for something I'm already using, so Super Shift K, it brings up the replace shortcut menu, but it still continues to listen to my key presses. So, obviously, not exactly a perfect system. There's already a patch for this though, so by the time that you guys are downloading Cosmic, that should be dealt with, assuming they make a tag for it. I don't know if they're going to make a tag for it. They should make a tag for it, though. And then there's still some random text overflow bugs. All my monitors have really long names. If we make the window really small, look, the text does this. I don't know what they could do to properly fix it. Probably just not show the entire name, which they're already cutting off. They're just not cutting off at the right point. Yeah, it's a beta. And if you are interested in trying out a beta, just keep in mind you're going to run into problems. There's going to be bugs. It's not going to be perfect. This isn't GNOME after 30 years or KDE after 30 years. Okay, I haven't been around for KDE after 25-something-ish years. There's going to be problems. But if you know about that and you're willing to deal with that, I think it is fun to try it out, and especially if you want to get involved in the project in its early stages, this is the best time to do it. But let me know your thoughts down below. Have you tried out Cosmic before? Have you tried out maybe early alpha? Have you tried out the beta already? I would love to know. What are your thoughts on it? Are you going to keep using it? Or is there something missing you would really like to see? So, if you like the video, go like the video. If you really like the video, go subscribe. And if you really, really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it. Bye.
Like this.